Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. We have quite a bit of entertaining ground to cover today, but we are going to start off with a very serious subject, which is yet again a huge national problem in this country that we can lay at the doorstep of that wonderful anti-hero, Tony Blair, who would have actually made a very fine prime minister had his greed not got the better of him, and had he not understood that the way to make a lot of money when he left office was to sell the British nation and the British people out to George Bush Jr. and enter an illegal war, knowing that his reward would be tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars at the end of it, because deferred payment from the paymaster would have been the order of the day, and was. And for a while he rode high, and he's made a lot of money. He's also destroyed his reputation. History will not treat Tony Blair any kinder than his reputation is with regard to the millions of lives he has ruined as a result of joining an illegal war on cooked up evidence, just so that he and Halliburton and people of that ilk could destroy a country, then use its wealth to make themselves money. Well, it's not the only taint to Tony Blair's reputation. There is another taint. It's not the millions of Iraqi and Middle Eastern lives that were lost and or damaged and or destroyed by such cynical warmongering. There is a scandal with regard to the post office in this country, because Tony Blair knew up front that there were huge problems with the Horizon IT system that was proposed for the post offices. Now, I have to tell you, to those of you who are foreign and don't understand, we have regular post offices in this country, and we have post offices that are subsections of shops. They're called corner shops here, but they're not always on the corner. These are run by hard-working people, and a section of it is for posting letters, posting packages, collecting your pension, that sort of thing. Small transactions are done via the post office. And they mechanized a system that Tony Blair knew at the time was deeply flawed and had huge problems with the potential to destroy people's lives, and it did. Over 700 of these innocent, hardworking people, decent people, were wrongfully convicted of crimes of stealing money that they had never stolen, because the IT system was known to be defective. It wasn't only known to be defective by Tony Blair himself, but by other government departments, one of which refused to have the system because of its patent defects. Tony Blair didn't care, even though he was given the opportunity by Horizon to withdraw from the contract. He went ahead with it knowing it was deeply flawed. Not only did over 700 innocent people get convicted of crimes they didn't commit, several of whom went to prison for crimes they didn't commit, but some of them committed suicide as well. Can you imagine? Well, there has been a report that has just been made public. It was done by Eleanor Sheikh, who has campaigned, quite rightly so too, for the victims of Horizon. And she has verified in the report that Blair pushed ahead despite Horizon giving him the option to renegotiate or cancel the contract altogether. She said, Tony Blair made the decision on more than one occasion in 1998. He gave his authorization to extend the project, and he made a final decision to go ahead. One has to understand who put this nightmare in place and who set this off on this trajectory of disaster. Now, James Arbuthnot, who is a Tory peer, and who actually is the younger brother of a chum of mine who died quite recently. We used to be trustees for a charity together. He was called Sir William Arbuthnot, and James is his younger brother, and he's a very eminent politician, and he is married to a very eminent judge, Emma. And he said the findings, quote unquote, make the scandal all the more dreadful, and he couldn't be more correct. There is a briefing note which has been released to the National Archives from the number 10 policy head, Jeff Mulgan, who warned Tony Blair. Remember, number 10 is, to foreigners, is number 10 Downing Street. It's the Prime Minister's office. He warned that the Horizon project had been beset by problems and was seen as a flawed system. And nobody should have proceeded with this. But Tony Blair recklessly, callously, and antisocially, I have to tell you, Tony Blair, in my opinion, and I could be wrong and I could be doing him an injustice, and if I am wrong and doing him an injustice, I withdraw my opinion. But my opinion is that Tony Blair is an extremely narcissistic character who also displays antisocial tendencies and basically doesn't have the scruples or the compassion or the empathy to care about the interests of anybody but himself. He was a very good prime minister in some respects. Had he not had this deeply flawed character, and it is his character that's flawed, he wouldn't have poisoned his legacy the way he did with such careless antics as the Post Office Horizon scandal and Iraq. And what do I think should happen to Tony Blair? I don't really know what should happen to Tony Blair, but I would have said that I think Tony Blair should be made somehow to show recompense. When John Profumo, in the Profumo scandal in 1963, was found to have lied to Parliament, he resigned and spent the rest of his life at Toynbee Hall, a place for very poor people in the East End of London, cleaning lavatories. Tony Blair, I think you should get out the lavatory brush and start to clean lavatories. Those people, their blood is on your hands. We couldn't nail you for Iraq. I hope we nail you for this. I don't think it's good policy to actually try or criminalize the way the French and the Americans have started to do politicians who have failed in their endeavors. I think it's a very bad policy. So I wouldn't like to see Tony Blair tried for the crimes he has committed in terms of this situation. Because make no mistake about it, he is guilty of negligence and manslaughter by default. Yes, manslaughter by default. He's also guilty of having approved a system that he knew to be flawed and put people in prison who were innocent. There is a price to be paid and he should be made to pay it. Lavatory brushes would be a good start. I don't think you can try him for the crime, but I think he can certainly be embarrassed into it, but I don't think he's going to be. Avid watcher says, Lady C, what do you think of royalty and aristocracy working in ordinary jobs like Lady Louise Windsor? Well, I'm all in favour of people of privilege working in ordinary jobs and sharing the experience of ordinary working people. Lady Louise Windsor, who is the daughter of Prince Edward and Sophie, who is the Countess of Wessex. And incidentally, she is actually Princess Louise of Wessex. She has the rank of a princess, but she uses the style and title of the daughter of an earl. She doesn't use her royal status. She has got a job at a garden centre near Bagshot Park, which is a really rather splendid Victorian house that her father and mother live in. It used to be lived in by the old Duke of Connaught, who was Queen Victoria's son. It's quite splendid. It's near Ascot and it's near Windsor as well. And you always pass it when you're going to Royal Ascot. But they are having her, quite rightly so too, work at £6.83 an hour in the garden centre nearby, doing things like potting plants, weeding, pruning, greeting customers, working on the tills. Wonderful. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. My father, one of the things he did when we were children is he made us work and told us we needed to know where our money had come from. And that was a wonderful, salutary thing for him to do. I know loads of other people who came from privileged backgrounds who have worked in menial positions. My ex-husband's nephew, Torquil, when he was the Marquis of Lawn, he's the present Duke of Argyll, He used to work in Harrods. I can't remember exactly where he worked now. It was a department of the perfumery because I popped in to see him once. His mother asked me to pop in and see him, and I did. And he worked in some department. Princess Katerina of Yugoslavia used to work there. My brother Mickey used to work there. I used to work there. Loads of people have worked in places like that. It's very good and healthy. People need to experience ordinary life in all its facets if they are capable of doing so. As long as you are not depriving someone who needs the job of a job. I think it's a wonderful thing. Susan Griffiths says, Lady C, you refer to that woman as a third-rate hustler. However, she has been successful in marrying a prince of the UK and the Commonwealth. I would call that first-rate, possibly. Your comments? Love your channel. Thank you for all that. And thank you for the very provocative comment. Well, Sue Griffiths, sorry, I still think she's a third-rate hustler. I think she is a first-rate operator, and I think she has succeeded brilliantly beyond all her hopes, ambitions, and expectations, despite being a third-rate hustler. You know, a third-rate hustler can pick up a diamond just because it's lying on the street. Meghan picked up low-hanging fruit. Harry, not only is he intellectually challenged, but he has personality and emotional issues. He was low-hanging fruit for somebody of Meghan's ilk. Other girls, decent girls, given the opportunity, they forewent the possibility. She grabbed that fruit and has been stuffing it in her mouth ever since. I don't think that makes her a first-rate hustler. I think she's still a third-rate hustler who struck it lucky and who, and I will admit through her endeavors and her hustling, managed to strike it big. But the fact of the matter is, had she been a first-rate hustler, she would have been able to make the transition from street hustle to drawing room hustle. I know drawing room hustlers. Meghan's not one of them. She doesn't have the finesse. She doesn't have the sophistication. She doesn't have the education. She doesn't have the vision. She doesn't have the dimensions to her personality. She's a third-rate hustler. Take it from me. I've seen first-rate hustlers. Lily Safra was a first-rate hustler. That was a first-rate hustler. This is just a third-rate hustler. Daisy says, Hi, Lady C. Much has been talked about Meghan wanting to modernise the monarchy, in quotes. As far as I can see, she only wanted to modernise it in terms of monetising it, by requesting sponsorships in terms of freebies and making the British royal family available at a price for anyone who wanted to sell undies, singlets and toilet paper. Her idea of modernising anything is to make it commercial for her benefit. Daisy, I agree and I don't agree. I think you've certainly got her bang to rights in terms of her commercial, shall we say, predilections. But she didn't only want to modernise the monarchy to make money. She wanted to modernise the monarchy so that any of the wisdom, any of the rules, any of the traditions any of the nuances that true sophisticates and truly intelligent and informed people would respect. She saw no need for them because she doesn't have the vision. She doesn't have the sophistication. She doesn't have the ability to spot. You know, she's very nearsighted. You can't expect somebody who is that short-sighted to spot the golden statues in the distance, to spot that what's shining is actually trees of diamonds. She missed it all. In her arrogance, in her ignorance, she missed it all. She also had no interest in it because she is too lazy to stretch to reach the fruit that's up in the tree. If it's not low-hanging fruit, she's not interested in it. That doesn't mean she's not calculating, because she is, and she's not far-sighted, because she is, and it doesn't mean she's not strategic, because she is. What it does mean, however, is that she is a limited, and you cannot expect somebody who is limited to function beyond their limits. And she doesn't function beyond her limits, and she hasn't functioned beyond her limits. And she has missed the fact that a lot of the rules and traditions and nuances of royal practice are sound and solid. And had she fitted in well, she might even have found ways of making herself more money than she's going to make. I can tell you that I can see ways that had she stayed in the system, she could have found ways of getting backhanders, of getting financial support, of getting endowments. But she wasn't sophisticated enough. And maybe, who knows, she wanted to do it more honestly. Let's give her credit for that. She wanted to be an honest hustler. But I don't think honesty is what it's all about. I think it's all about the fact that her concept of modernizing the monarchy was, let's not wear bright dresses, let's wear black. She's an oppositionalist. You know, whatever is around, she needs to oppose. And she opposed. And look at where it's got her. From the platform to become one of the most successful human beings on earth to revilement, all in the space of 18 to 24 months. And now, burnishing that cherry. Penny Landau says, the thing that struck me about Meghan Markle's wish to change the monarchy is that it didn't seem to occur to her that perhaps the British people might need to be consulted first. No one was asking for any change, and as the monarchy cannot exist without the people's consent, She obviously didn't understand that unilateral change, especially by an individual who has no experience of the country, the culture, or the people, is very unwise. Very well said. Clearly, she didn't even see us, much less consider our wishes on the matter. Why would she see you? Why would she see any of us? We're of no consequence. We don't count. We're ants. We're flies. We're leeches. We're fleas. We are contemptuous and to be treated as such. All that being said, hopefully it will serve as an insight to Americans should Meghan Markle ever manage to run for any political office. She didn't see us here in the UK, and she won't see the people of the US either, nor will she hear them. It's all about Meghan Markle and what she wants. She doesn't want to actually do anything to make positive changes. She just wants to align herself with causes and issues that have the potential to provide her with accolades. Accolades, attention, and money. And opportunities to make more money. Yeah, I don't think she cares a thing about anybody except herself and her ambitions. Going off her character as she has revealed it to us via her conduct. I think if she is elected to public office in the United States, she's going to be an unmitigated disaster. But I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. I think she's deluded, and I think there are people who pander to those delusions. And I think she hopes that she will be able to do, as I say in my book, what she said, that if Trump and Reagan could do it, so could she. Well, let's see it. She does. And Meghan's efforts are not about actually creating change. It is about creating opportunity for her to get column inches. You know, all her bright ideas, 40 by 40, is just one of the many bright ideas that have come to nil. And the ones that don't come to nil, like the cookbook for Grenfell Towers or the Vogue editing stint, are done by other people. She doesn't do any of it. She might do a teensy-weensy bit, but it's all done by other people. And of course, she got the credit for it. And then she believed that she was as wonderful as her public reputation. But then this is something that she's used to, because her father, who's a wonderful man, led her to believe that she had written that letter and that Hillary Clinton and Gloria Allred and Procter and Gamble had responded when none of them did. So she's learned from an early age, it doesn't need to go. It's only for show. And as long as she gets the credit, everything else is meaningless. Virginia Benson says, Lady C, did you notice the look on 3-year-old Charlotte's face when, as a bridesmaid, she encountered the unsmiling Meghan? Just for a second, they locked eyes. The innocent uncertainty on the child's face suggested a little soul wary of something not yet understood. Virginia Benson, I did see it. And it chilled me to my bones. And I can tell you, had it been my child, I would have made sure that she wasn't within 50 meters of anybody who shot her a look like that ever again, and that she had such a frozen reaction to. You know, children of that age don't remember what happened, but they do, on an atavistic level, have sufficient recall to know this is somebody to avoid. And that was what I got from that exchange. And of course, as those of you who have looked at this program before will know, Givenchy, people at Givenchy got in touch with me last year. And I'm the person, thanks to them and their revelations, who was able to fill the world in as to what had happened at that rehearsal. Because the people at Givenchy are the ones who were so outraged on Charlotte's behalf that they informed me of what had gone on. All I can say is it really takes a particular kind of person to take on a 3-year-old. But I've seen it with my mother. I've seen it with my mother, with my little sister, when she was a year and 3 months old. And I'll tell you what Mummy did. Margaret was trying to reach for the lights on the Christmas tree. And Mummy took out one of the bulbs. And she said, "Pretty, pretty, pretty, yes, pretty, pretty." And took Margaret's finger. And she pushed it in the live socket. And Margaret was shocked, literally shocked. My father heard the howl and came outside and said, "What on earth is going on?" And Mummy said, "I'm just teaching this child that just because it's pretty doesn't mean she can touch it." And he went ballistic. He said, "You could have killed her. You could have electrocuted her." Mummy, complete indifference. So I've seen it. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, with my own mother and my little sister. It takes a particular type of person to take on a child and prevail to that extent. And as the Givenchy people told us, the whole thing was not a pretty sight. Anyway, the less said about that at this point, the better. Erstwhile says, a couple truly in love usually don't have this much anger, hatred in their hearts. They are usually too full of the good stuff to bother spending time bringing down others. Well, that's my experience anyway. Erstwhile, it's also not only been my experience, it's been my observation. Mean people do mean things. Nice people do nice things. Now, if you take on a nice person, they may fight fire with fire. In fact, it would be recommended that they fight fire with fire. Because if you're going to fight fire with letting them burn you, that's not very clever. But putting that aside, yes, you're absolutely right. People who are loving, love. People who are hateful, hate. People who are ambitious to that extent, in my estimation, and all the research I did when I was writing Daughter of Narcissus into personality disorders, people with that degree of ambition, that degree of need to control, that degree of need to have recognition, that degree of strategic planning and manipulativeness usually don't know how to truly love, and they don't enjoy the benefits of love. There is a difference between love and attention, and they don't know the difference. But they certainly have the ability to be enraged and to hate. Kelly Louise Brown says, I honestly don't think Meghan could understand how Charlotte is up the line of succession than Harry. So I think she resented that. Kelly Louise Brown, I agree and I disagree. I think she certainly got the message that Charlotte was higher in the line of succession than Harry was, which meant than she would ever be. And I think that might have been a bit of a trigger, don't you? But I think she certainly grasped the fact, and she understood it only too well. She simply didn't like it. And also, maybe the theme today should be low-hanging fruit. I think Charlotte was low-hanging fruit. Now, you don't have to like a child, but are you really going to discomfort a child or compare one child to another unfavorably in front of people? I think that says an awful lot about the heart of the person, irrespective of what they regard as their motivation or their justification for behaving in the way they do. Nina Ribena says, is this not just a ploy to overshadow the visit of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge in the US? Nina Ribena, I think you are speaking about the Earthshot visit, which is in December, and Harry and Meghan's visit here and Germany is going to be in September. I think, remember the old adage, a week is a long time in politics? Well, to Meghan and Harry, a day is a long time out of the newspapers. And I don't think they're setting up the situation from in September to steal the Cambridge's thunder in December. I think they are safely secure in the knowledge that they will come up with something to steal that thunder then. So no, I don't think the visit here now has anything whatsoever to do with raining on the Cambridge's parade in the US. Uma Bell says, there is an advertisement for parade crowds to cheer the gruesome twosome when they are in the UK. How cheap and low is that? Well, I've never heard of paid crowds before, but may I say that I think it's actually a very resourceful idea. It's a variation on what Marlene Dietrich used to do. And I know this because Gertrude Brooks was her PR, and Gertrude told us when Marlene Dietrich was at the Schubert Theatre in 1968 in New York performing, that Marlene's favorite trick was to employ young men to rush up at the end of a performance and throw flowers, which of course she bought and paid for, onto the stage, screaming how wonderful Marlene was. Well, this is a variation on the same theme. I think we've already seen that Harry and Meghan don't need to pay to get booed, but clearly they need to pay to get chaired. So I think it's quite resourceful of them. The pity is, of course, that they've missed the opportunity to have taken advantage of the platforms that they were given and that rarely would have enhanced them, and then they wouldn't have needed to pay to get chaired, and they wouldn't have got booed either. But c'est la vie. Nandini Eves says, Lady C, apparently the ginger whinger and the non-entity are renewing their vows. In my opinion, this normally happens just before a couple decides to uncouple. Would love your insights. Love to you and your furballs. Well, thank you. I will cuddle Mickey, Aurora, and Treasure on your behalf later. Nandini Eves, who is British because it has I think it's called an emoji of a heart and the Union Jack. Yes, people often do have renewals of their vows just before they break up. Or I tell you what happened here once with a lovely couple. The husband was dying and they had a renewal service here before he died, and it was a wonderful, moving occasion. But of course, death is a way of uncoupling as well. But I don't think Harry and Meghan are thinking in those terms. I think they're most likely thinking in terms of photo ops for Netflix. Maybe she will wear that white dress or another white dress and another veil. Because remember, Meghan, despite being married more than once, is still a virgin. She's still purer than the freshly driven snow. Needs to wear a white veil and a white dress. And don't bring up those two children to me, please, any of you. She has bested the Virgin Mary, who only managed to have one virgin birth. Meghan's had two. I think it's Netflix content, pure and simple, if it happens at all. And remember, with Harry and Meghan, you need to guard against believing anything that they or their PR people put out there. Because today it's the sun rises in the east, and tomorrow it's that it rises in the west. And the day after it rises in the north, and the day after that in the south. And they're always right. And everything is to be believed. Remember, before they came over here for the Queen's Jubilee, do you remember? Harry and William were on major super speaks, zooming each other at least once a week. Oh dear, that turned out to be a lie too, didn't it? Oh, these lies. Oh. H, why doesn't the public believe our truth? Why do they keep on saying that our truth is not the truth? It's our truth. I don't care that it's a lie. It's our truth, and our truth is the truth. And don't forget it. Our truth is the truth. And don't you dare forget it. How dare you say that I would ever say anything that wasn't the truth being our truth. Louise says, all of it has been so unnecessary. If they had acted like the loving couple they purport to be, they would have shown that love and support to their family. The grandson of a beloved queen, son of the Prince of Wales and future King Charles, brother of the future Prince of Wales and future King William, and uncle to the future Prince of Wales and King George. A life of privileged ceremony appointments, myriad uniforms to choose from, a life of honour, plenty of polo games atop the most magnificent horses. Oh dear, oh dear. And let's remember, we've got to fight with that trophy so that it's... I'm going to get in there for the photo op, no matter what, even if the trophy comes crashing down on my head. To continue, beautiful estates, a life of devoted service to his people. Huh! Devoted service to his people. Oh my God, they want me to give away the milk-free money. Can you believe that? These people don't understand. I've got to get paid for my milk. You always taught me. Don't give the milk away free. And Mommy, I learned my lessons well. I'm never going to give the milk away free. Why should I give my milk away free? It's just outrageous. They want us to give the milk away for nothing. Are they crazy? I mean, crazy. And I'm not interested in the fact that I had a larger dress allowance than every single princess, queen, and royal duchess in the whole of Europe put together. I wasn't going to be able to bank that money. It doesn't count. Oh, Mommy, please, come and rescue me. Come on, teach me again how to wangle my way into prosperity. Not giving the milk away for nothing. Sorry. Oh, anyway, if I may resume. Beautiful estates, a life devoted to the service of his people. Oh, this is what Harry's lot would have been if he had chosen better and honoured the grace given to him by God. To choose this woman and this life was an ignoble choice. I couldn't agree more. To be documented and examined throughout the ages. A pity. I am glad my mother, who was a staunch monarchist, is not here to see it. I wish none of us really had seen this come to pass. I couldn't agree more. Heartfeltedly couldn't agree more. By the way, my 84-year-old husband loves to see you and wonders how much jewellery you have. Oh dear, my dear, sorry. I'm not going to be able to answer that. Don't you? I get that you're asking and that your husband wonders. And good, you're absolutely within your rights to be curious. But do you mind if I dodge that bullet on the grounds that it would be inelegant to speak about such things? It would be really inelegant, and I would be very uncomfortable doing it. There are some forms of interest that conflict with good taste, and much as I would love to satisfy everyone's interest in every way possible, there are some areas where I'm afraid I have to practice decorum over satisfying interest. Let's put it that way. And I love your comment, and I think it is a total disgrace, and I think it is awful that we have been subjected to this. It is awful that the family has been subjected to this. I mean, we are interested, but they suffer. They personally suffer. It's their lives. So there is, from their point of view, a horrendous dimension that we will never experience, and they deserve our compassion, the family. all the members of the family, whether it be the Queen, the Prince of Wales, Prince William, Catherine, the uncles, the aunts, Thomas Markle Jr., Samantha Markle, the Johnsons, all of them have in various ways, shapes and forms been made to suffer because of this unseemly display. But there is a purpose to it, and that's why people are interested. It is a car crash in motion. It's terrible, yes. And it's repellent, and it's repetitive, and it's irritating, and it's boring at times in its repetitiveness. But it is also ghoulishly fascinating, and it is instructive because we are seeing in real time what the ancient Greek, Roman, and Shakespearean masters, including Shakespeare. I meant Tudor as opposed to Shakespearean. I was thinking of Shakespeare and said Shakespearean instead of Tudor. But we have in literature so many warnings about surrendering to destructiveness and what surrender to destructiveness will do. And this is the living embodiment and enactment of it on a daily basis, provided by Sunshine Sachs at Harry and Meghan's behest. What a waste. Truly sad and regrettable, truly dreadful. Nevertheless, instructive. And that's the value in it. That is the value. It is instructive. People learn lessons not only from goodness, but from destructiveness. Stephanie Lyne says, Dear Lady C, was Harry's trip to Mozambique simply the US delegation's visit for his PR that followed? It described him as co-hosting a group of US officials as president of African parks, but photographs and other reports suggest he wasn't involved with the delegation and only met Mozambique's tourism minister. If so, it's another example of the PR positioning from the court of Monte Decito, love it, to keep them trending. And I'm going to read the other comment on this because then I'm going to deal with them in one. And Sue Townsend says, all of the photographs and reporting of the US political visit to Mozambique failed to include Harry nor mentioned him. Omid Whatnot, Aurora, what's an Omid Whatnot? Ah, Aurora says, that's amid scabies. The itch. The itch. My goodness. The itch. Omid Whatnot put out that he was co-hosting, quotation marks, when in fact he had nothing to do with it all other than welcome them to the national parks. In what capacity, I have no idea. Anyway, plenty of photos, but none including Harry! Exclamation marks. Well, there we have it. It's yet more pie in the sky. or Bachelor of Science, except it's not Bachelor of Science, it's BS, without the C. Or maybe the C is a four-letter word that has actually transmogrified into reality as it shoots out of Harry and Meghan's mouth, or out of the fingertips of Sunshine Sachs as they work the computers and convey yet more propaganda. Well, so Harry's grab for attention hasn't got him very much. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Do you think we ought to do a sort of whip around and try to maybe get some money, and maybe we can instruct anew, maybe Saatchi and Saatchi. Saatchi and Saatchi was very good with Mrs. Thatcher. Do you think they would improve Harry and Meghan's reputation? But yeah, the Mozambique trip is actually, fun and joke aside, a serious matter, because this is Harry and Meghan and Sunshine Sachs and their handlers. Handlers. I've used the word deliberately. Trying to establish him as a bona fide royal global presence. It may not have worked very well, but that has been the attempt. Kevin Cole says, Lady C, former working royal Prince Henry, is on a tour of Africa. I could see no large security details in Johannesburg or elsewhere on this tour. Is he now suing African nations to pay for his security there? Harry doesn't need to pay African nations for his security. Harry doesn't need to worry about his security in Africa. Have you forgotten Harry is now black? I mean, putting aside the little bit of African blood that came from Madrigana of Pharaoh and the description of Philippa of Hainault, as they say in England, and putting aside the subcontinental blood from Diana, Princess of Wales, via Eliza Keogh, her many times great-grandmother, Harry is married to a black woman. Have you forgotten? Look at Meghan's hair. Look at the hair of those 1,000 Turkish virgins. Sorry. That's not the hair that God gave her. Sorry. Look at that Caucasian nose. Sorry. Well, it's pseudo-Caucasian. As Caucasian as it can possibly be after the interventions of a not very good plastic surgeon. Look at all those fillers to have softened the cast of her features. Why do you think she always has that smirk? Because her face in repose is not a pretty sight. She wills it into existence. So her beauty is as much an act of self-will as everything else. Well, and loads of help from others. But insofar as his security is concerned, thank you for pointing it out, Kevin Cole. Of course, there was no great security. There never is. There's never any need to be. Look at them in America. Look at them at Jackson Hole. Where was their security? But they need security. when they're in England, they need to sue because they need that status as people of international consequence. That's what they need. It's status driven. Status and security both begin with S, as do truth and lie. Sorry, they begin with truth begins with L. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Truth begins with L. Well, their truth begins with L. And lie? Well, they would never lie. Never. Never. Quert Y says, you are right, Lady C, about being addicted to a negative person. I was with my now ex-husband for almost 20 years. It was a toxic relationship and he mistreated me in the most awful ways, even after our sons were born. I'm very sorry to hear that. Looking back, I now realize he had narcissistic personality disorder. After I left and we divorced, it took me 6 whole years to get over that relationship. And 16 years later, I cannot enter another relationship due to trust issues, so I choose to remain single. My dear, I hear you loud and clear. When I married my husband at 24, my spiritual cup was full to the brim. When I left him, it was where the dregs were showing. It took the next 20 years for me to replenish my spiritual cup to the extent that it had been when I married my husband. I know what being married to toxicity can do and how it drains your spiritual cup. Let's hope that should there ever be a separation, that Harry does not fulfill the worst fears of his loved ones and that he somehow survives intact. Let's put it that way. But you're absolutely right. And I've said this way because Alex A says, and this is the final subject that we're covering today. In my opinion, I agree with many. This sad marriage is a classic case of folie à deux on steroids! Again, in my opinion, the outcome is likely to finish in the way that mostly happens with this condition. We hope not. I do hope I am wrong. Hope you're wrong too. But one can only hope. To resume. Call me an idiot, but if you take a troubled and unworldly person, play into their delusions and stuff them with drugs, alcohol, false love, and the notion of a notion of what is right and wrong, you will not see the real and likely most decent person they are or were. I do not believe that person I see before me now is the real prince that existed before the marriage. Alex A, a lot of people who know and love Harry used to say that. Fewer of them are saying it now. The longer the period between that Harry and this Harry, and the more the Meghanized Harry is coming to the fore. But yes, there are people who believed, fewer, as I said, than used to believe, but there are still one or two who still believe that this is not the real person, that the real person has been buried and that he is functioning in a tumble dryer and being really buffeted from side to side. And in his desperation to fulfill a vision of and a hope of love, has I shudder to say, I'm not going to say what I think, but I will put it more gently than what I really think. I will say, hopefully, by the time the article of clothing comes out of the wash, it won't be so completely bedraggled that it will be of no use to itself or anyone else. You could be right. The problem with when you sell yourself out, because that's what you do, when you sell yourself out for whatever reason, practice makes perfect. And the new self, the seed grows into its own plant. And be careful that it doesn't grow bigger than the original plant. And with lack of sunshine and nurturing from the soil, that doesn't wither and die. But yes, it is folie à deux on steroids. And if it's not, they have certainly given us a very misleading impression of what they are about. And it would be lovely to discover that we were wrong. I would like nothing better than being able to discover that my assessments are wrong, that my conclusions are wrong, that everything I wrote and everything that I have said since I wrote that book, that they're all wrong. Sadly, I don't think they are. Let's see if the original plant will survive the tremendous manure that has been dumped on the new plant, and that it is therefore growing exponentially at the rate of knots in the most tremendously unedifying display of folie à deux, as you rightly say, on steroids. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. And remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in. This cannot be done without you. God bless and goodbye.